Today we're going to talk a little bit about overcoming imposter syndrome. Have any of us in here ever heard of imposter syndrome? Yeah? Most of us? Maybe not? That's okay, I'm about to tell you what it is. So imposter syndrome, just pretty basic definition, is a common phenomenon among professionals, including college students, where they doubt their abilities and fear being exposed as a fraud. So imposter syndrome can show up in a lot of places in a lot of different ways. I know for me last year when I started grad school as a barely 21-year-old who wasn't very much older than any of the people that I was working with or the students that I was supposed to be teaching and mentoring. So that can kind of make you feel a little weird, right? A little awkward. Maybe you don't feel like you have that much more experience. You don't have the skills that you need to actually be able to help these students. And that's definitely something that I faced for a little bit last year, and I'm sure we've all kind of felt that way in different areas in our own lives, right? Anybody want to share their own example? It's okay, we're going to do an activity and I'm going to make you guys share a lot, so it's okay. Okay, so we're going to kind of break this down through an activity from WordPress. So you guys can do this on your own first, and then we're going to come together and do it. But for our first exercise, I want you guys to write down 5 things you find yourself struggling with. So it could be career-related, personal, academic, or anything else that you feel can be relevant to like this idea of imposter syndrome. So you can write it down, put it on your phone, put it in your computer, whatever you've got. Let's get those 5 things that you find yourself struggling with. So we're going to go ahead and kind of start discussing this while everybody is finishing up their own 5. So let's have a few people go ahead and share a couple things that you wrote down. And I know we don't like to talk out loud, so if you share, I'll give you a water bottle. It's okay, seriously, yeah. Yeah, that's a good one, right? I mean, we have to do that way more than we probably want to, no matter what our major is in college. And that's absolutely hard for a lot of people, especially when it's something that you don't really like to do and then you have to do it anyway. Absolutely. What's somebody else got?
Stay motivated.
Yeah, motivation is a huge one, no matter what we're doing, right? Even if we have 7 assignments and we have a job and maybe we're in a sorority and we have to go do things, it can be hard to be motivated to do all of those things to the best of our ability, right? So that's definitely something that we can struggle with. Who else wants to share?
Finding a post-graduation job.
That's a big one, because same. Yeah, no, that's definitely something that can not only be a struggle, but also really scary, right? I mean, we're in college for 4 years or 8 years or whatever it may be by the time you finish your varying levels of degrees, but then it all leads up to finding a job. And there's a lot of uncertainty that comes with that. And it makes it really scary. And I know for me, I definitely don't feel like I'm old enough to be at that point in my life or prepared enough to be at that point in my life, and I will be in May, which is terrifying. So that's kind of that sense of imposter syndrome, right? Like, I'm going to start a job somewhere, but I definitely don't feel like I'm ready to do that, which is really scary. Does anybody else want to share? Okay, cool. Well, we're going to do some more things. You guys can get your water bottles when we're done. Okay, so for the second part of this, I want you guys to write down 5 things or actions that make you feel positive. So like things that you do or that you see or whatever it may be that make you feel happy and kind of give you that positive feeling as opposed to the negative feeling that the things we're struggling with give us. So we'll take just a couple minutes to do that really quick, okay? So let's share a few of those things. Like, what are things that you do or watch or, I don't know, even just look at that make you feel happy or positive or proud? Let's share a couple of those. Absolutely, right? I don't know how many of you guys like have your Canvas set up where you can see like the percent that you've done for the week, but when you get it done and it says 100%, that makes me feel really good about my life. So yeah, checking things off our checklist, those things absolutely make us feel good. What else?
Working out.
Do what?
Working out.
Yeah, working out. That's a great way, especially like to burn off stress and just kind of help you take your mind off everything else that's going on, right? Gives you a little bit of something else to focus on. What else?
Volunteering.
Yeah, volunteering, right? Like finding a bigger purpose than maybe our homework or school and finding something else that we can be really passionate about? Absolutely. Anybody else want to share? Yeah. Traveling? Yeah, going and seeing new places, taking time to just kind of enjoy everything that's out there and not having to focus on completing tasks or anything like that definitely helps us, makes us feel good. Something that all of these things have in common is just kind of like helping us relax, right? Like maybe doing one thing, like completing any homework assignment, is breaking down our larger goal of graduating into smaller tasks, right? So that can make these things a lot less scary and make us feel a lot more confident if we choose to focus on those little things and little pieces at a time, as opposed to, oh my gosh, I have to graduate, all as one big task. So now we're going to move on to our second exercise. So on this little page, we have a list of values, and I want you guys to think about the positive things and actions you listed on the last page, and you're going to circle or highlight the values that correlate with your positive thoughts. Okay, so you guys don't have that option because I didn't print this off, and I changed that, but it didn't save, so that's cool. But I want you guys to just write down the ones that correlate with with the things you wrote down that make you feel positive. Does that make sense? Okay, cool. So we're going to look at this list, and we're going to write down just a few. I would say, to make the next part easier, pick like 3. And that'll help you with the next part if we don't have too many written down. So now what I want you guys to do is you're going to pick one of the values out of your list of 3, and I want you to write a couple of sentences explaining why this is important to you. So you can write it, type it, think about it, but we are going to share it, okay? So one of the values that you picked out of the list of 3, and I want you to really think about why that's important to you, okay? So just a couple sentences, a little bit of reasoning about that, behind why you picked that specific one out of this list of all of them. Okay, does everybody have your sentences written down for the one you picked or in your head? Your reasoning? Okay, cool. So I want a couple of you guys to share with me the 3 that you originally picked and then the one that you selected as the most important and why. I promise it's not scary. There's like 15 of us in here. Nobody's going to get mad. Yeah?
I picked accountability, achievement, growth. The one I chose as most important is growth. I said I'm a very growth mindset person. I have a lot of my life already planned out. I already know who I want to be later on in life, and it's just a matter of growing to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really good reasoning behind that. And I think that you're doing so much better than me if you have a plan for your life. So good on you for that. But yeah, and I think that all 3 of those that you picked kind of work together and build off of each other kind of up to that ultimate goal of growth. So it's interesting to look at it that way as well. Who else wants to share? Yeah.
I chose achievement, persistence, and efficiency, and then the one I chose was achievement. I said completing something makes me feel good about myself. I feel like doing something positive for myself and setting goals helps me move forward instead of staying stagnant.
Yeah, absolutely. And that kind of goes back to what we talked about a second ago, right? About how taking some of these larger goals that we have for ourselves and some of these scarier goals and positions that we're going to put ourselves into and breaking them down into smaller achievable goals can help us feel that sense of accomplishment, right? And help propel us forward as we continue to work towards these big goals in life. Who else wants to share? Yeah.
Friends, safe happiness, and family.
Mm-hmm.
And I picked family.
Yeah.
I didn't write anything, but they're the one that truly makes me happy.
Yeah.
Nothing bothers me except if anything happens to my family.
Yeah, absolutely, right? So kind of going back to that idea of like what makes you happy and where you can find happiness and kind of peace when you're going through these feelings of maybe some of the effects of imposter syndrome. Your family can be a huge support system, right? That's something else we're going to talk about a little bit later on when we get to some of the tactics for overcoming imposter syndrome. That support system that you have around you, the people you surround yourself, have a huge impact on whether or not you're able to face those challenges and keep going, right? So absolutely, you guys are getting so ahead of me on this. Anybody else want to share? Don't worry, you're going to get to have the opportunity again. Okay, so for our third exercise, You just explained the value and why it's so important to you. Now I want you to kind of think about your day-to-day life. Do you tend to practice that value regularly and live up to it? So I want you to either agree with this, somewhat disagree, have a neutral stance, somewhat agree, or agree. So like if you said that growth is really important to you, in your day-to-day life, do you prioritize that? Like, do you make that a priority in your life to follow through on that? Or if like family is really important to you, do you place them above other things in your day-to-day life? So just kind of, do you hold true to that value that you said was most important to you? Okay, so what do you guys think? Do we disagree that we keep this value at the forefront of our day-to-day lives? Do we somewhat disagree? Are we neutral? Or do we somewhat agree? Yeah, kind of. Or do we agree that this is something that we keep at the forefront of our day-to-day lives all the time? Yeah? That's awesome. I think knowing what's important to you and making sure that you prioritize that, not only when things are hard or when you're facing challenges or you're trying to overcome these feelings of imposter syndrome, but in your day-to-day life, right? And then that's going to help combat some of those things coming your way in general. Having that support system and knowing how to face those challenges is going to help you before they even arise. So if you picked somewhat agree or agree, what are some ways that you practice the value in your day-to-day life? I don't think we had anybody pick disagree or neutral. So we'll just focus on this part. So if you said you agreed that you practice this in your day-to-day life, how do you do that? Yeah.
I said my faith is the most important thing to me, so I get quiet time every morning before I start my day.
Yeah, absolutely. Taking that time out of your day to make sure that it's a priority, right? And scheduling that in so that that's something that you don't have to worry about if you get too busy for, but it's just already a part of your plan for the day. What else do we have? Come on. I know some of you thought about it.
I said somewhat agree. I usually am pretty consistent, habitual. Like I read quite a bit, wake up early, do all that kind of stuff. So it really helps me grow.
Yeah, taking steps to like make sure that you have time to include things in your daily life that are going to push you forward a little bit more every day. Absolutely. What else do we have? Come on, I promise nobody's going to judge you or get mad at you. Okay. Nobody else wants to share before we move on? Okay. So for our last exercise, I want you guys to think back to the last time someone asked you for advice on a topic. What was the topic? How did you give advice to someone? And did you feel confident explaining that topic? So if you want to take a second and jot down some notes on this, maybe think about it so you can keep it straight in your head. Let's go ahead and do that really quick, okay? Okay, so we're going to break down this one a little bit more, but let's have somebody talk through theirs and then we'll kind of break it down as we go. So who wants to share their example? Yeah?
Since it's like enrollment time, my buddy and I were in the same major, and he asked me advice on classes and making his schedule, and it felt good helping him out and telling him which classes to like avoid or which ones to take, or which ones would probably be most beneficial for him.
Yeah. So you felt confident kind of giving that advice to him?
Because most of the classes that he was looking to take were ones that I had already taken.
Yeah, absolutely. So maybe in that sense you didn't necessarily feel those effects of imposter syndrome, right? Like you had the background, what you needed, you had the information that you needed, and you'd already completed a lot of the tasks that he was about to, so you knew how to give that advice. I know for me personally, I kind of have the reverse of that. So I'm getting my master's here in agricultural communications, and I did my undergraduate in agricultural communications at Texas Tech and Lubbock, where the classes are very different. The professors are very different, the coursework is very different. But my roommate is working on her undergrad in ag comm here, so she asked me quite a bit for help on her homework or for advice in particular classes with specific teachers, and I a lot of times have no idea what to tell her. And that's kind of hard, right? Because I have the degree, I've taken the same classes, but I don't really feel confident that I'm able to help her because I don't have the right background. I don't feel confident that my advice based on my experience in a different place with different teachers is really going to be valuable to help her in necessarily all the same ways that it would if I were giving somebody at Tech that advice. I would feel a lot more confident. So sometimes even in those small situations, those feelings of imposter syndrome can kind of start to creep in, right? Like, it's weird. I'm about to have 2 degrees in this same concentration area, and I don't feel like I can help answer her questions about a writing class sometimes. So that's a little hard, right, to make sense in our heads, but that's just some of those effects of imposter syndrome. Does anybody else want to share theirs? Come on. It's so much more fun if we all talk. I'll sit here and stare at you for a little bit longer.
I was asked a question the other day by a guy. It was just something kind of serious going on in his life, and I didn't really feel confident to give him the right answer on the subject, even though there was like kind of no one else for him to ask at the time. So it felt rough, and I felt bad. But
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure we've all kind of been in that situation, right? Like, maybe we're a friend or a family member, or honestly, maybe even somebody we don't know that well, but who may have nobody else to turn to, ask us a question about something pretty important because maybe we're the only person they have to talk to, or the only person they feel comfortable talking about it with, but we don't necessarily feel prepared to answer that question or give that advice, right? And that can be really scary because it puts a lot of pressure on you to feel like you're the person they need to help them, even if maybe you don't necessarily have the tools that you need to do so. So I think that that's what we're going to cover a little bit next, is just kind of some of the ways you can overcome imposter syndrome. So the first way is to change negative self-talk. So we've probably all kind of experienced some negative self-talk, right, as college students, whether that's looking at an assignment and just knowing right off the bat that you don't think you're going to be able to do it, or it's really scary and you're not prepared for that. That's just a couple examples of negative self-talk. I think that it happens to us in a lot of ways, right? Like, maybe if we're in a sorority and they open up positions that we can apply for, we don't feel like we're prepared or the right person to run for those positions, even if we have all the skills and the experience necessary. And that goes for the same for clubs and everything else, right? So negative self-talk is a major contributor to imposter syndrome. If you're telling yourself you're not good enough at something, or that you're not prepared, or you don't have the skills that you need to have, then it's going to be really hard for you to overcome that feeling of imposter, right? It's going to be really hard for us to feel like we belong if we're not telling ourselves that we do. So challenging negative thoughts with evidence and positive affirmations. Focusing on your strengths and accomplishments and recognizing that everyone makes mistakes are just a few ways to kind of combat that idea of negative self-talk. So if you see a really scary assignment or a big group project that maybe makes you a little bit nervous, I think it's important to think about all that you've done before, right? Even as freshmen, we've all done things in high school that have prepared us to get to college and to do these assignments, right? As soon-to-be graduates, we've done hundreds of things in college that have prepared us to get jobs. Even if it's scary, even if the process may be new, we've done the things we need to be prepared. And I think it's important that we just keep that in mind and remind ourselves of those things, as opposed to letting that negative self-talk creep in and make you feel even more unprepared. Building a support system. We already talked about this a little bit when you mentioned family earlier, but the people that you have behind you and in your corner are a crucial part of success, right? Surrounding yourself with the right people is very important. When you surround yourself with people who believe in you and your abilities, you can build your own confidence. When you seek out mentors and colleagues who can offer guidance and support, they can help build your confidence as well. It's important that we have people around us who know our goals, who know our dreams, and who are supportive of that, not questioning of that, right? If you have people in your corner who are willing to support you in whatever you want to do, wherever you want to go, as crazy as it may be, then you're going to be a lot more confident than if you have people who are constantly questioning you, right? And who maybe don't believe in you as much as you believe in yourself. So I think it's really important to keep that in mind, especially as college students. We have the opportunity in college to build our circles and to choose from so many people. And I think that it's really important that in doing so that you choose the right people, right? People who believe in you, who share your values, who want to support you no matter where you want to go. And I think that that's something to keep in mind not only as students, but also as we move into professional careers. Make sure that the office that you join or the company you join is going to have that same environment, right? Like that supportive environment. And then we can also take action. So you need to set realistic goals. We talked about this a little bit as well. Maybe breaking down our larger goals into something a little bit more achievable. So you can take smaller steps and celebrate each of those successes, right? So every time you turn in an assignment, that's a small success on your way to graduating. It may not feel like it because there's so many in between here and there, but it is, right? And you can check that off your to-do list. You can complete your Canvas 100% circle for the week, and that's something to celebrate. You've taken the step to accomplishing that big goal, and it's important that you realize that and that you celebrate those little things as opposed to just celebrating at the end, because it's going to help encourage you to keep going when you celebrate along the way. So don't let your fear of failure or of messing up or of being embarrassed hold you back from taking risk and pursuing your dreams, because we're all scared, right? There's lots of things we don't know what's going to happen, how we're going to do it, and how we're going to get there. But if we don't try, then we're never going to get there. And I think that that's what imposter syndrome can do the most, is hold you back from trying. So I want you guys to go away knowing that you don't have to be scared of it, and that there are ways to combat it and ways to keep moving forward, even if it doesn't necessarily feel like it.